Hello and welcome to the Resilience Reef. This is a show for people who are dealing with chronic health conditions and want to manage it better, or people that are supporting people actually with their chronic health condition, because it can be equally as difficult and challenging for carers and supporters as it can for people with the chronic illness themselves. On today's show, we are going to talk about I say we, but it's just me for now because I have a special guest joining me, hopefully, from Sydney, and that is Cait Wotherspoon. And unfortunately, we're having some terrifically difficult weather here in Australia of late. And it's probably due to the storms or rain in terms of why she's not been able to connect today. But I'm very hopeful that she will get to join us and share her pearls of wisdom. Cait is a psychotherapist and counsellor, particularly working with grief and loss, and yeah, so she's worked as a nurse and a teacher, and now she's working as a psychotherapist and counsellor. So there's some great pearls of wisdom that I want Cait to share today, particularly with regards how we manage the physical and the emotional aspects of grief and loss. We will all experience it. There's no doubt about that. It's one of those human conditions where we just experience things that we are yearning to have back, or things that we've lost and we just can't find. With chronic health conditions, especially complex ones, it's a never-ending supply of grief and loss situations. Unfortunately, it's not like we go through something and we grieve and we grieve that loss. We've got it for life. Typically, when we have a chronic illness or a disease or an injury, we've got that for life. We're stuck with it, unfortunately. And so we have to learn over and over and over and over again how to deal with the loss and the grief that we're going through with different aspects of our disease and illness. Because the thing about the nature of a chronic health condition is that it becomes, we go through periods of relapse and remission and recovery. And each time it's not always the same process. So we can't always exactly match on what happened to the last one to this one. But what we can do is we can start to build kind of patterns, if you like, resilience patterns, where we think, well, although it's not the same as what happened last time, although it's not exactly the same situation, I'm now on different treatment. I've got different symptoms appearing here that I didn't have before, perhaps because of the side effects of a medication, or perhaps the disease itself or condition. I'm now experiencing a different kind of challenge with it, and I'm not sure how to deal with that. But grief and loss is wrapped up in a lot of things that we have to deal with chronic health conditions. And so building resilience, building some strategies, some effective strategies of managing those emotional and physical symptoms is super important, because we can't always change things. We can't always just jump into problem-focused solution mode of, oh, I know what that is, I'll fix it, because that doesn't always occur with chronic health conditions. We're not always in control of how we manage our condition. The body sometimes decides what happens. The doctors decide what happens with the treatment. So some of the things that we would like to do and want to do to manage our chronic health conditions is not possible. And so we have to learn to live with the symptoms. We have to manage them better. Now, some of the things that I know about that I'll talk in Cait's absence, because I do work with grief and loss as well in my business as a hypnotherapist and resilience coach. I know there are various models and stages and theories of grief, but it is a very individual process in terms of how we experience it and the triggers, the situations that cause it. But there are some common elements in terms of managing. If we can't control it, if we can't change it, if we can't affect it or influence it, there are certain things that we can do to cope better with it. And And, we're not always in the game with chronic illness or with anything, actually, to be at a stage of accepting what is, accepting our lot. We're not always ready for that. But there are things that we can do to help us cope better with it. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm sad or when I'm upset or when I'm anxious or angry, these are common elements of dealing with a grieving process. I find things to do. I get busy, and busyness helps us to get distracted. And that's a great thing about it, because we can either go around the block, go and have a bit of exercise, take ourselves off to the shopping mall, do a bit of retail therapy. It may not solve the problem, and it probably won't solve the problem if we can't influence it or control it. But what it does, it makes us feel better. So perhaps we do something we like to do, watch a movie, go buy a new book, do something. Sitting and feeling sad and feeling angry and fearing the worst is not a good position to be in. It's not a nice place to be. And I think the thing is that if we can't influence it or control it, we have to learn to live somehow with it. Easier said than done, I know, because I do it all the time. And I have my moments, we all have our moments, ups and downs, where we think, what the heck am I going to do with this? I don't know how to get myself out of this sadness or this anger or this frustration or whatever it might be. Despair, helplessness, hopelessness, all these kind of things are rolled into this idea of how we deal with grief and loss. And it does get better with time, I promise. If you are dealing with it for one of the first times or not, it doesn't matter, because the fact is, it does always get better with time. I have Cait now joining me, so this is a wonderful thing that we've got going on here. So I'll just bring Cait in. Hi, Cait. How are you?
Oh, hi, Karen. That was awful. The internet, it just wouldn't work. My gosh.
Yeah, we're having some. I was just saying, because we're on the live stream now, and I was just. I've introduced you, but I'll introduce you again, because I think the thing is that we're having some weather systems going on here in Australia, aren't we? And we've got a really gloomy, rainy day today, and it knocks out our internet very, very easily. It really does.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I'm glad I had my phone anyway.
Well, I'm so glad you managed to join us. I'll introduce you again, because now you're here and people can see your face and your picture and everything. So yeah, welcome, Cait Wotherspoon, who is a psychotherapist and counsellor at Indigo Psychotherapy and Counselling. And also, I introduced the fact that you've also had a colourful career, because you've also been a teacher and you've been a nurse. Probably a bunch of other things that we didn't get around to talking about previously, but you've got so much experience of dealing with grief and loss, which is the topic of the show today, and what we're talking about. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
you're very welcome. So I was just explaining a few things about chronic health conditions and how we deal with this ever-evolving, revolving thing of having to deal with grief and loss a lot of the time, in the kind of issues that we're dealing with, and how sometimes we can't control those things, we can't influence them, we can't problem solve them like we can other things sometimes, and we have to learn to cope with these things, the physical and the emotional symptoms that we're dealing with. Although they're terrifically terrible, there are ways in which we can cope better with them to help us to manage our chronic, because if we don't, then that will impact our chronic illness and it will actually make it worse, not better.
Yes.
So
Right.
I'll let you talk a bit about your aspect, because I know this is your interest. This is what you like to work with, and you know a lot about.
Yeah.
So, do you want to? I'll hand over to you to share some of the things that you know about in terms of helping people to manage their physical and emotional dealings with grief and loss.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'd like to share that I have had COVID terribly. Like, I really suffered for 8 days, and now I have long COVID. So I'm actually dealing with this myself. So I know I know myself that these things do help, that
Yeah.
I'm trying not to panic, for one thing, and gathering people to help me with the symptoms of the long COVID. So, and helping me physically and mentally.
Can you just describe what kind of symptoms you're experiencing with the long COVID? Because
Mhm.
basically
Mhm.
you had COVID and you had, I remember you losing your smell, wasn't it? With
Yeah,
that.
and my sense of taste as well. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
I was down for the count for 8 days. So,
Oh,
and then, like, it was worse than any flu I've ever had. So it's, I was shivering. I had 3 doonas on me plus a blanket. My
wow.
husband yeah, my husband just kept asking me, "Do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a cup of tea?" And it was like, "Oh my god." And I think I
Wow.
slept for those 8 days as well.
Wow.
So,
So it knocked you
yeah,
out, yeah.
just waking and sleeping, and it was it was actually quite scary. And, like, I had contact with my doctor as well, which was great. So she
Right.
could, help me with what to have, like,
Yeah.
I had Panadol and, making sure my temperature was down and having taking care, and I've got a holistic, nutritionist as well. So she told me my dosage of, vitamin C, vitamin D, quercetin, magnesium, all those things to help
Mm,
support my immune system. So it
great.
was just knocked out. And then, after I had 8 days of being knocked out, it was, vertigo time. So I rang my doctor and
Oh,
she said, "Oh, and that's part of it as well." So I went, "Oh,
okay.
okay, vertigo time." So
Oh,
this was a real message from my body to slow down, really,
mm,
really slow down. And I
sure.
say this to my clients all the time, you need to be patient. And I am actually the worst patient ever because I hate being ill. I seriously
Yeah,
hate being ill.
yeah,
And I hate the recovery stage, but I know I have to go through it.
yeah.
So the vertigo started for 3 days, and then I was okay. But then I still had heart palpitations. My lungs aren't great. They were compromised beforehand anyway. But, and my focus isn't there. I've still got foggy brain. So
Mm,
I'm doing everything I can to support myself physically and,
mm,
mentally as well. So you need
mm.
a good support group around you, a great tribe, and it's really important that you get people that will, support you in every way. Like, I've had flowers and chocolates and books and, wonderful messages and
Yeah,
things like that from everyone. So you really need to gather a support team around you who are, not only professionals, but friends as well, who will listen to your moaning and groaning and be okay with it and not say,
yeah,
"Oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that?"
yeah,
And it really doesn't help. It just feels like, "Oh, you're not really listening to me."
yeah,
So just support by listening, being present with that person. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's so important. So I have been loved and loved and loved so much, and I really appreciate from
Great.
my people. And for my clients, I want them to know, any clients listening to this, I'm okay because I am taking my time and I
Yeah,
have surrounded myself with professionals and friends. So I'm doing
yeah.
what I say, and
I
yeah,
think when you're dealing with something like, especially like, because a lot of people with chronic illness or disease don't like to be ill. That this is part of the grief and loss
yeah,
process, is it's an identity you don't really want to be involved with. You know, it's kind of,
yeah,
I don't want this label, I don't want this illness, I'm not here to do this. And it's very hard to feel like you can share this with people. You know, you don't
yeah,
wanna be a
yeah,
moaner, you don't wanna, and sharing it sometimes makes it real, doesn't it? And then you think, "Oh, goodness, now I'm wearing the label that I don't want to wear because I'm talking about it, I'm sharing it. But
Yeah.
that's actually exactly what we need to do, isn't it? We need to share how we're feeling and what we're going through and how people can support us in that process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've lost some of that, the storytelling, the sharing, we've been in our own little shells, in the little, we've had two parents and two kids, and that's been it. And we haven't had the generational help that we used to have. So I'm lucky. I have had, like, my grandparents and parents have died since, but I'm there for my children, and my children and grandchildren are there for me as well. So really looking toward generational help as well, because that's really needed. And we do lose the, it's like telling your story is moaning. That's what I hear clients say all the time. They're sick of me moaning, they're sick of me whinging. And it's like, no, it's, if those people are sick of it, don't sit with those people. Sit with
They're
the
not the
people
right
that go,
people.
yeah, that's right. That are the ones that go, oh, wow, this must be really tough what you're going through. You've been going through this for months or years, and, it's really hard to even, to be there doing what you're doing and trying to support yourself in every way you can. So
Absolutely.
I think that's most difficult, is the friend or family sitting with you and not saying anything, because you're all well-meaning. It's well-meaning stuff like, oh, have you asked this person, or did you try this? That's well-meaning stuff, but it's like, really hearing what that person has to say.
Yeah, because in a sense that's saying you're not solving this good enough. It makes you
Yes,
feel kind of like I should be doing more to deal with this. But in fact,
exactly.
sometimes just recovering, resting, and being okay, taking our time with recovery is just what's needed, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And having patience, like having my friends tell me, Cait, you've got to be patient. It's like a real, oh my goodness, I've got to remember to be patient. Patience isn't my forte. I'm like going, one of my friends describes me as going 100 miles an hour with my hair on fire all the time. So it's like, slow down, Cait. And that's one of the practices that I share with my clients. You've got to notice your breathing, notice your breath, notice what you're doing. And now I have a list of what I need to do during the day, and then have a list of what I'm capable of doing during the day, which is really important right now, because that list of 500 things won't get done today, because the brain isn't capable of it, or the body's not capable of it. So be okay with not doing everything.
And I don't know about you, but I write lists and I have calendar events. And I think if I leave them long enough, they'll disappear. And I can do it, and I come back to them and I think that's not relevant anymore. I don't even need to do that. I'm not sure why it was even on the list. It's not even something I need to do.
Well, that's right.
Scrub it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My dad used to have the saying, and I've just totally forgotten it, don't leave what you can do today to do tomorrow. And I used to
Yeah.
live by that, like, I've got to get it done today.
Yeah.
But now it's really, no. The priority is actually breathing and living life to the fullest right now, and living in the moment. That's so important. It's really important to live your life, because, I say, a lot. It drives me nuts. So, but it really helps living in the moment, slowing things down.
Yeah.
Meditation is so important. Just, listening to a YouTube meditation, a guided meditation. I do a minute meditation about 20 times a day, that it is just listening to my breath and feeling my breath, just hand on heart, and noticing my heartbeat slow down. So if you do that during the day, you notice how fast your pulse is going, how fast, life is going. So slow down just for a minute. Even put it on a timer in your calendar. Slow down for that minute.
Yeah, I think we are just going really, really full on in terms of doing too much, I think. And it's some great tips there, because it brings us back to us, and it brings us back to reminding us of the present. And, if we're not well, then we can't really help other people to be well, or we can't look after our families, and we can't be friends to our friends, because we're no use to people if we're not well, if we're not looking after ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And feel your feelings. Like, that's so important, to feel whatever you're feeling, because you get angry about not being able to walk, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to, chase after people, have fun, go to parties or whatever you're missing out on. So I always recommend that people write a diary, or have a video diary that they just report to every day about how
That's
they're
a good idea.
feeling.
Yeah.
And because some people don't like writing.
I started doing that with a journal, just a Word document, because it just makes you feel so much better knowing that you've externalized it somewhere. That nobody will ever read this, but just the fact you have talked to your diary, it's almost like talking to another person.
Yeah, that's right. And you're actually talking to yourself and clarifying what you're going through. You could be really angry at yourself, and it's not being angry at yourself. It's actually being angry at your situation. So you generally turn in on yourself. It's a common thing, a normal thing that people do. But if you turn outward and look at your situation, well, I'm not doing everything that I used to do. This is my new thing that I'm going to do. I can, one of my friends had breast cancer and had to have the full mastectomy and chemo, radiation, and it was only last year. And she had her first train trip into the city yesterday, and it was such a celebration that she actually got on a train by herself.
Awesome.
And but all these little steps you need to celebrate as well, to know that you can do them now, and not looking back on what I can't do, because even growing older, you can't do certain things because your body doesn't let you. Even though you've been exercising all your life, your body won't let you do certain things. So I think celebrating what you can do is so important, really, really important, and celebrate it somehow. Tell social media I'm doing this great thing that I haven't done for a year or 5 years even. Recovery is really tough and slow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some great tools and strategies for people to think about then. And I think all wise advice.
Thank you. There's just so much that you can do for yourself, not only meditation, journaling, videoing, there's being with animals, animal therapy. They slow your heartbeat down, and all these things help with your general health, like anxiety and depression are lowered.
Yeah.
Blood pressure is lowered. You are more calmer. So if you're with animals as well, my dog especially knows me and sits on my knee, and it calms you. And if you can feel their heartbeat, it will eventually. There's been research done on it. your
Yeah.
heartbeat eventually syncs. So in with
Awesome.
one another. Yeah. So
I don't have a pet, but
yes.
I do have, I bought we have a native garden, and we bought a
Oh,
bird bath for the birds.
yes.
And I have to fill it up so many times a day because they just
Yeah.
love coming and it's all different kinds of varieties, and they'll sit together, they'll bathe
Yeah.
together, and they'll fight together. And even that, if you just take a moment out to explore and be mindful of the environment that you're in, I could
Yeah.
just sit there. I just get fascinated. I could just sit there and while away the time for hours with these
Well,
birds.
that's
They're not
yeah.
even
Yeah.
mine, but I
Well,
feel very privileged that they come and see
no.
me and they come and visit my garden. And
That's right. Yeah, and they all have different calls. I absolutely love birds, but they do. They have different calls
yeah,
and different personalities. Nature therapy is wonderful as well. Just
absolutely.
getting outside. Yeah. So
Yeah,
getting
sometimes.
outside and breathing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes what we're saying is sometimes it's good to focus on ourselves and spend time
Yes.
with ourselves and be present with ourselves. And
Yeah.
that may or may not work for you sometimes. I know some strategies work for me
Mm.
sometimes and not others. But other times
Yes.
it's about getting outside yourself, isn't it? And seeing what's going on around you and what kind of things you can engage in that maybe takes your
Yes.
mind off it a bit and distracts you away from some of the noise that's going on inside, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, because you can only change you. You can't change all the external things that are happening to you. Often there's medical stuff that has to happen to you, and you
Mm.
don't have a choice. Well, you have a choice to
Yeah.
have it or not. So, but if you change the scenery, also get outside into the open air, change watching movies, watching
Mm.
comedies
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
helps as well.
It
Great
does.
comedians. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's so much you can do to help build your mental, physical, and spiritual health. So yeah, but
Absolutely.
um, yeah, but losing yourself within, we were talking about grief and loss. Losing who you were. That is,
Mm.
it changes you. Moving through life changes you. Losing your health changes you.
Mm.
That's your
It does.
identity, being this healthy person.
Mhm.
So, but it's being patient, going through life, being who you are now, and being okay with that. And being sad for who you were as well, the loss of
Mm.
who you were, because you were that amazing person. I do. I facilitate soul collage as well, which is an amazing thing to help you look inward into you. And
What's that called
it
again, Kate?
helps
Sorry?
soul collage. And
So
I worked on a piece. Yeah, soul collage. So I worked on a piece. Oh, this way.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's collaging, it's psychotherapy, and it's collaging about who you are. So this was about
Okay.
acceptance, and this I worked on it for 3 hours, and you find different images of who you are. Like the topic was acceptance. I did it with a group, and the
Okay.
topic was
Great.
acceptance. So yeah, but that moved me from being an ill person to being a person who can move forward. So I was actually
Great.
focusing on the past too much
Yeah.
and not focusing. So it sort of clicked me into my present life. So yeah.
Stunning. That's a really good idea. I'm gonna try that.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
soul collage, it's wonderful.
It's like a vision board.
Yeah.
I've heard of vision boards where you think about the
Yes,
future, but this is nice because it's
yeah,
about accepting, sense of taking stock, I suppose, and kind of
yeah.
acknowledging. different aspects
Yes.
of yourself, and
Yeah,
where
that's
you've been,
right.
what you've been up to, and actually the kind of things that you do, the skills that you've got available, and the resources you have within you to do this. It's
Yeah,
good. I like that.
exactly. Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
pretty as
yeah,
well. You've done it in a nice,
yes.
pretty way.
Yes. Well, that made me so joyful. I couldn't believe it because I picked the young woman there because she
Mm.
reminded me of me when I was 23. And whenever people
Mhm.
ask me how old I am, I always say 23 because my brain hasn't grown older, but my body has. But that gave me great joy. But putting all the things around it made me really appreciate who I was and then who I can take with me, that I'm still that 23-year-old.
Mm.
The outside's older, the
Yeah,
inside's, me. And I've grown through wisdom and experience. So, yeah.
stunning. That's awesome.
Uh,
Well, thanks
hmm,
for that, and thanks for coming on the show, given that you've
yeah.
been through what you've been through over the
Yes.
last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and months. When it started quite a while ago,
Yeah.
because we talked for a few months,
Yeah.
was it a few months ago?
Yeah. 28th of January, I got it.
Yeah, wow.
So,
Gosh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So it's a long thing. Yeah. Of
Yeah. Well,
accepting what it is. And yeah.
yeah. Well, I really do wish you
Hmm.
the best of recovery, because I know, it's a new thing we're dealing with, so, we don't know
Yes,
where it's gonna
that's
take us,
right.
do we? But
No.
hopefully it's not done any lasting damage for you. That's the main thing, I hope.
Well,
Fingers crossed.
yeah, that's right. I know. Yes, yeah. And I hope all the people out there who are dealing with this sort of thing as well, that you get into healing yourself, body, mind, spirit,
Yeah,
and, getting the right people around you and doing the things for you that work for you. I think it's best to take
great.
care of you first.
Great. Well, it's super great that you managed to join us today despite the
Yeah.
weather and the internet, and, it's been a great show, and I'm
Yes.
gonna be sharing some of these things around, so that's awesome. I'll catch up with you again soon, but everyone, bye for now. Thanks for joining us,
Fabulous.
and, sorry, I just forgot, if you wanna talk to Cait, in terms of getting some super duper help with your grief and loss, you're on social media, you're on Facebook, you're on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and I see you on Instagram. So there's no way
Instagram.
people can avoid seeing Cait and finding her if you need to.
No, yes, that's right. Thanks so much, Karen.
Thanks. All the best. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.